The Chicago Blackhawks made quick work on getting an extension done with Alex Vlasic this summer, as earlier this morning, the 22-year-old signed a 6-year deal. And on today's episode, I'll talk about why Vlasic's $4.6 million AAV is an absolute bargain, and I'll also get into my mini Chicago Blackhawks season recap.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can find me on X at Jack Bushman2. Make sure to also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey as well. So that way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And just a quick reminder to everyone watching this on YouTube right now, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff really does help me in keeping the show growing. And if you're tuning into the audio version of today's episode, make sure you're constantly downloading all of those latest episodes. Even if you're someone who's regularly watching on YouTube, go and help me out, please, by downloading all of those latest episodes. You can rate and review the show as well if you like what you're listening to on a daily basis. And last but certainly not least, got to let you all know, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you're a new customer, you'll get $150 worth of bonus bets guaranteed. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Really exciting show on tap here today. And starting things off, some great news out of Chicago this morning. Not only is it a huge day for the Chicago Bears, draft day across the NFL, and the Bears hold the number one overall selection in the 2024 NFL draft. Sure looks like they're going to be landing their next quarterback of the future. And the Blackhawks this morning also have locked up their quarterback of the future, if you will, on their blue line is 22-year-old Alex Vlasic. Yes, signed a 6-year extension earlier this morning through the 2029-2030 campaign with a nice little $4.6 million AAV during that stretch. Oh boy, did that put a big smile on my face. It's the first long-term deal also that we've seen Blackhawks general manager Kyle Davidson dish out in his tenure as GM. And I think the Wilmette, Illinois native and Alex Vlasic is absolutely deserving of being the one based on what we saw from him in what essentially was his rookie season in the NHL. Not technically a rookie, but basically had that status because not a whole lot of NHL experience coming into this season, but boy, he didn't make it look like it. And Alex Vlasic is someone I personally have been super high on for a long, long time now. Folks that have been with me since the start of me doing the show, and even before I was doing this podcast, when I was independent and had my own show going on, then you'd know Alex Vlasic is someone I've always held in high regards. I was actually running and screaming through my house when the Blackhawks picked him 43rd overall in the 2019 NHL draft. But even I didn't envision this season going as well as it did for Alex Vlasic. I mean, truly establishing himself already as one of the premier shutdown defensemen in the entire NHL at only 22 years old, being thrown into the mix as a top pairing defenseman, even though he had never really gotten a sniff of that at the NHL level. He was previously utilized as kind of the number one down in Rockford last year at the AHL scene, but it's not like I said, he didn't really have a lot of experience to lead him into that top pairing role that he found himself on most of the year along with Seth Jones. And he just absolutely thrived. And I thought continued to get better and better and better. And there's kind of two parts of it that really make me excited about Alex Vlasic. First off, there's just what he's able to do as a big-bodied, stay-at-home, shutdown defenseman. And that's always going to be his bread and butter, his jam, if you will. That's the style that he wants to play, responsible defensively, utilizing that long reach of his to shut down zone entries and to knock up, to knock away loose pucks and to break up plays in transition and also play tough in front of his own goaltender. And, I think that's something that's going to come with age and experience. I think Alex Vlasic will get a little bit more rugged and have a little bit more of a mean streak in him as he, starts to become 25, 26, 27 years old and starts to become a man. But even as a 22-year-old, like he was able to handle his own. I know there were a lot of Blackhawk problems defensively in front of their own net, but a lot of them weren't because of Alex Vlasic, right? Like, I think it was pretty clear that he was the best defensive defenseman that the Chicago Blackhawks had this year, even better than Seth Jones. I think Jones is the better all-around defenseman, sure, but Vlasic, I think, already has him beat on the defensive side of things, and all the underlying numbers and analytics from this year really suggest that with Alex Vlasic. And I'll get into those here in just a moment. But I also want to talk about what we saw out of Alex Vlasic and the parts of his game that maybe we didn't think would be, come as easy for him at the NHL level, like the puck handling and the puck carrying and the passing and just all the other things. Offensively, the offensive side of things, there's always question marks about him. Like I said, more of a defensive defenseman. But I thought he shined in all of those areas as well. The first thing that really stood out to me in terms of his development is just the speed, man. I mean, you do not see many 6'7" defensemen with the wheels and the acceleration also that Alex Vlasic has. I mean, we've seen him jump up into rushes in transition and make it an odd man rush for his team. And we've also seen him use the wheels to get back on the defensive side of things. The speed really caught my eye this year. I did not think Alex Vlasic was that good of a skater, but man, that's really going to do him favors along with his size. And then all the puck touches that he had in the offensive zone, like his confidence, I thought was super high. And I just think he has more in his arsenal offensively. And while that'll never be his bread and butter, like I said, defense first is always going to be his style. I think he has more to offer offensively than even I imagined. I think a huge part of that is based on what went down in Rockford last year. Rockford gave him a lot of opportunities on the top power play unit, even in the Calder Cup playoffs last year. Vlasic was the guy running the point on the power play, and I think they did that because they just want him to develop in those areas. They know defensively is always going to be his anchor, but if you can kind of progress the offensive side of things, then you have an absolute weapon on your hands. And I don't think Alex Vlasic's ever going to be like a point per game guy, but being able to chip in and contribute offensively is just going to make him even more valuable to this Blackhawks franchise. And, you can only expect him to grow offensively as he's still a young man. And on the flip side of things, you can also only expect him to get better defensively as well as he continues to get a little bit stronger and mature more and gain more experience. So I think it was an A+ season in many different ways in many different areas for Alex Vlasic. We knew this contract extension was going to be happening, but I didn't think the Blackhawks were going to get it done this fast. Clearly one of their top priorities going into this offseason. And I mean, it makes sense. Alex Vlasic flashed top pairing number one shutdown defenseman upside for the Blackhawks this year on a terrible team in a really tough role, playing lots of minutes, absolutely deserving of this extension. But let's talk about that $4.6 million price tag for a second. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I envision Vlasic probably getting somewhere around $5 to $5.5 million based on the salary cap going up and just what he proved already right off the riff. I thought he was going to get more than what Matthias Samuelsson got for the Buffalo Sabres. That was kind of a potential comparison deal to look at. I figured Vlasic was going to get more, but I figured like 5.2, 5.25 was probably going to be what it was. But to see $4.6 million, super team-friendly deal out of a guy, like I said, who was a number one defenseman for this Blackhawks team this year and shapes up to be the number one defenseman of the future, in my opinion, for this team from what we saw. And to think for the next 6 years, we can have him at $4.6 million. That is excellent. In terms of the projected value of this contract, based on the fine folks over at The Athletic, in 2024, his estimated worth in terms of millions of dollars is $6.1 million, 2025, $6.9 million, 26-27, $7.5 million, 27-28, $8 million, 28-29, $8.5 million, and 29-30, $8.8 million. So based on those numbers, the Athletics models are telling you that Alex Vlasic is going to be worth the money of a number one or number two defenseman, especially when he starts to be 26, 27, 28 years of age in the latter years of this contract. And the Blackhawks are, his projected value in the final year of that deal is $8.5 million. The Blackhawks will have him at 4.6. This is going to feel like a fantastic deal down the road for Kyle Davidson and the Chicago Blackhawks. Super excited about it. But let's get into some of the numbers for Alex Vlasic this year out of his rookie campaign. Played in 76 games, had 2 goals, which was tied for third among Blackhawks defensemen, and added 14 assists, which was second among all Blackhawks blue liners, combining for 16 points. Was -4 for the Blackhawks in 76 games, while averaging over 20 minutes a night. Pretty gosh darn impressive. 71 shots on goal. Would like to see that number get up a little bit more and maybe have some better puck luck success, as he only shot 2.8% this season, but averaged 29 minutes and 21 minutes and 29 seconds of time on ice. Second among all Blackhawks players, behind only Seth Jones. And if he had been eligible to be in the rookie stats, that would have been second among all rookie defensemen, behind only the Minnesota Wild blue liner Brock Faber. Added 148 blocks, 56 hits, 60 takeaways. Really, really solid numbers out of Alex Vlasic. And the analytics are even more impressive, in my opinion. He was nearly in the 100th percentile among all defensemen in EV defense this year, was in the 78th percentile in penalty kill wins above replacement, in the 78th percentile in offensive zone entries. So that goes hand in hand with establishing more of an offensive game, and the speed that that's kind of progressed noticeably here for Vlasic. Was in the 76th percentile as well for defensive zone exits. So exiting the zone with the puck, he was rather successful as well. And then he was in the 78th percentile in entry denial rate. So really good at breaking up opposing rushes coming into the Blackhawks defensive zone, and also in the 98th percentile in D zone retrieval. So when the opponent dumps in the puck, Alex Vlasic is able to go and get it out of harm's way, as good as anyone as a 22-year-old. Man, I'm smiling ear to ear about this contract extension. I've been thinking about Alex Vlasic arriving on the NHL scene for a long, long time, but even I didn't envision him making his impact felt this quickly. Super excited that the Wilmette, Illinois native is now locked up through the 2029-2030 season. And I love this quote in particular from Nick Foligno. He said, "I know we call it the Connor Bedard era, but I also call it the start of the Alex Vlasic era too." And I am super excited about the Alex Vlasic era, and also the slew of other defensemen coming up for the Blackhawks in the next couple of years. I think they'll have a good guy to learn from in 22-year-old, about to turn 23 this summer, Alex Vlasic, now signed on with the Blackhawks for the next 6 years. All right, there are my thoughts on Alex Vlasic signing a contract extension with the Blackhawks this morning. A very team-friendly contract extension, might I add. Coming up in just a moment here, I will get into my mini Chicago Blackhawks season recap now that we're a week removed from the end of the regular season and the dust has settled a little bit. But first, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is also in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to go to bet on every single game. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Yes, you heard me right. That's $150 win or lose. And you can use these bonuses to bet on everything from slap shots throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs to home runs across all the major league ballparks to slam dunks on the way to the NBA championship, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Go and visit FanDuel.com/lockdown right now and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockdown. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I also need to talk to you all about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and to bring home that championship trophy. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available right here, right now. Make sure to go and check it out before the action kicks off in just a couple hours. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local experts, college football experts, and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and also wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 2, now that the dust has settled a little bit and we're 1 week removed, I've been having trouble saying that here today. Now that we're 1 week removed from the end of the 2023-2024 regular season, I wanted to go through a quick little season recap for the Chicago Blackhawks and talk about just kind of what the heck happened this season, because going into the year, taking you all back to August and September, the Blackhawks were supposed to be better, right? And I'm not talking like going and contending for the Stanley Cup playoffs. I still imagine them being a bottom 10 team in the standings, but I figured they'd be probably closer to 7 or 8, probably closer to 10 if I'm being honest. And certainly not being in the bottom 3 like we had seen in 2022, 2023. In no way, shape, or form did I envision this Blackhawks team being worse, because you go and get Connor Bedard, the number 1 overall selection. He's stepping onto the NHL scene immediately. The Blackhawks also go out and acquire Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno from the Boston Bruins in a great deal, fleecing them because they didn't have any cap space. Corey Perry gets added. Lucas Reichel's coming off some steam at the end of the 2022-2023 season. There's some more young guys that are stepping onto the scene as well. It just looked certainly more promising for the Blackhawks going into this year. And according to the odds makers, the Blackhawks over-under in terms of points going into the year was 72.5, and they were coming off of 59 the year prior. So that was kind of, I think, accurate in terms of the progression that I expected to see out of the Blackhawks this year. But we obviously know they finished well shy of that, 19 points to be exact, as they finished with 53 here this season, somehow 6 points worse than they were last year. And let's talk about what the heck happened. And I'm also planning on going through kind of fragment by or piece by piece an outlook of the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm going through a quick little season recap here, but in future episodes next week, I'm going to be talking about an offensive outlook for the Blackhawks, what happened on the offensive side of things this season, and how does it look moving forward. And then I'll get into the defense. How did the blue line look as a whole this year, and what's the future of that? And then I'll wrap things up by getting into the goaltending. But as a whole here together, what went down with the Chicago Blackhawks this year? Well, let's go on back to the start of the regular season. If you all remember correctly, the Blackhawks had an absolute gauntlet of a schedule right out of the gate in October. Why? Because they wanted to roll Connor Bedard through all of the biggest markets in the NHL: Toronto, Boston, Colorado, Montreal, Pittsburgh on opening night. I mean, it was just a nightmare for the Chicago Blackhawks early on in the season. And quite honestly, as a whole, their schedule just was not great this season. But still, they survived that early onslaught. They won 3 of their first 9 games, 3-6-0 through their first 9, considering the level of opponents that they were playing. Was pretty darn impressive. And they beat the Penguins on the road on opening night. They also beat Vegas in Vegas and also beat Toronto in Toronto, I believe. So it was a pretty decent start. They also won 2 of their next 4 games at the beginning of November to reach 5-8-0 through their first 13. And it's like, okay, maybe the Blackhawks could kind of flirt with this 500 number all year long. That would be kind of fun. But then November is really when things kind of went in the toilet because we saw Taylor Hall get hurt. Andreas Athanasiou gets injured during that road game in Tampa. And then they just couldn't win a road game after that. November, after Taylor Hall and Andreas Athanasiou got hurt, it's like something just shocked this Blackhawks team, man, because the rest of November, after winning 2 of their first 4 games in that month, they lost 7 of their last 9 there. They really lost some of that momentum that they had established early. And then December, if you all remember correctly, is kind of when all hell broke loose in terms of injuries. It got so bad that head coach Luke Richardson told the media he had never seen anything like this. I mean, everyone basically was just getting injured for the Blackhawks, right? And then that was also off the heels of the Corey Perry incident, which I'm sure was very tough and frustrating for the guys in the locker room to have to deal with. And then, like I said, December comes and just everyone starts getting banged up. Tyler Johnson missed time, Taylor Radish. They brought in Anthony Beauvillier, and then he got hurt. Nikita Zaitsev goes down. Seth Jones gets hurt in Dallas, I want to say. Joey Anderson gets called up, looks good. He gets hurt. Connor Bedard ends up going down then in January. The Blackhawks were struggling on the road then. The offense is struggling even more now that Connor Bedard is out. And it's just like they lost their footing and they were never able to get it back. And really, from the middle of November until Connor Bedard came back from his injury, they really, really struggled to score. I mean, it was a problem for this team all year long. They were dead last in the NHL in scoring, but that like 2-month period in particular was really, really tough. And like I said, they just were never able to kind of get that momentum back. They weren't able to win games on the road. So basically, anytime they left the United Center, it was like a guaranteed loss. I mean, look at the stat. After November 11th, when Andreas Athanasiou went down, the Blackhawks won 3 more road games the rest of the way. And let me remind you, November 11th was like the 4th week of the season. Blackhawks didn't win another road game until March, I want to say, against the Arizona Coyotes, and only won 3 road games out of probably their final 30. I mean, when you can't win on the road, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And it's not like they were an elite team at home otherwise. So just a lot of issues compounded with this Blackhawks team. They didn't have depth scoring all year long. The defensemen inside their top 4, they basically had 2 rookies and Kevin Korchinski and Alex Vlasic. The third pairing was a little bit of a revolving door night year all year long. And for any chance of the Blackhawks to win with this roster, Peter Mrazek had to go and stand on his head. And then whenever he wasn't in there, Arvid Soderblom just really wasn't able to get to that level that the Blackhawks needed to win games. So yeah, as a culmination, just an absolute stinker of a season out of the Chicago Blackhawks, man. The one that certainly tested my patience the most since I've been doing the show. And let me tell you, I've been watching a lot of bad hockey since I've been the host of this show. But this season, I think, really took the cake. And I was super glad to hear that Kyle Davidson kind of felt the same way because I'm sure he doesn't want to watch another season of that type of hockey. I know us fans don't want to watch another season of that hockey, and it's time to head in a better direction. So hopefully when I'm going through a season recap this time next year about the 2024-2025 Chicago Blackhawks, I'm talking a little bit more highly as to what went down throughout the 82 game campaign, because this past year, not a lot of good for the Chicago Blackhawks outside of Connor Bedard and Alex Vlasic's development, Philip Kurashev, Jason Dickinson, Nick Foligno. There were some bright spots, but as a whole, you look at the team numbers, I mean, they were just terrible. Blackhawks won 23 of their 82 games this year, second worst record in the entire NHL. And oh yeah, the one team they beat was the San Jose Sharks, who were just an absolute disaster from start to finish. The Blackhawks were 32nd in the league in goals per game, 29th in goals against. And then the special teams really wasn't any better. The power play was terrible all year long until maybe the final month and a half there. 28th out of 32 teams, and then the penalty kill was 27th. So a lot of bad there out of the Chicago Blackhawks, but kind of feels like, knock on wood here, that they only have one direction to go, and that's up. Like I said, I would much rather be talking this time next year about a much better hockey team. There wasn't a lot of good out of the Chicago Blackhawks team this season, and that's unfortunate because I did think the season started a little promising. Going through the gauntlet, they survived, and I felt like this young team, along with some key core veterans, really could have built off of that. They really could have held their heads high, being 5-8-0 through those first 13 games. So it is what it is. Tough year to watch the Chicago Blackhawks, but on to better days. On to better days. Certainly not a very fun season, but got to do what you got to do. Still broke it down as best as I could. All right, there is my short little Blackhawks 2023-2024 season recap. Coming up in just a moment here before I wrap things up, I still have to talk about Roman Kantserov helping Metallurg win the 2024 Gagarin Cup. But first, I need to talk to you all real quick about Sleeper. We've now reached the best time of the year for hockey as the Stanley Cup playoffs are officially underway. And regardless of whether your team reached the postseason or not, I want to remind you that you still could be winning big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. And Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests all throughout the postseason. And entries can be made in under a minute, and all you have to do is simply pick whether studs like Connor McDavid, Artemi Panarin, or Nathan McKinnon will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, points, shots, plus minus, and more in any single game. And to win in 100x bet on Sleeper, all you need to do is correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Yes, you heard me right. You can win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, make the right picks, and you could be winning real big. And right now, you can also go and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get up to an $100 match on your first deposit. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps, and go and see Sleeper's terms of use right now for more details. Last but certainly not least, I need to talk to you all about Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the only job site out there where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. So instead of spending multiple hours on countless job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need to use the one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all, and that is Indeed. Indeed streamlines the hiring process with powerful tools that find you match candidates in an instant. And again, I personally love Indeed because it's the only job site out there where you only pay for applications that meet those must-have requirements and standards. And Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every single dollar count. And according to ComScore, Indeed is the number one job site worldwide. And Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. So start hiring right now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Again, go to Indeed.com/lockedon for quality applications that meet your hiring criteria. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? Then you need Indeed. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, to everyone who's watching this right here, right now on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you live 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts from Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 3, before I finish things up here today and let you all go and enjoy the rest of your days, I did want to be sure to mention that Blackhawks 2023 second round pick, the 44th overall selection in last year's draft, Roman Kantserov and Metallurg swept Locomotive in the KHL finals to win the 2024 Gagarin Cup. That's the third time that they've accomplished that feat in the franchise's history, and Roman Kantserov had his fingerprints all over Metallurg's success in the KHL postseason. He finished 7th among all KHL players in scoring with 13 points, 4 goals and 9 assists in 23 games worth of action. 7 of those 9 assists were primary apples, and 3 of his 4 postseason goals were game winners. He also averaged nearly 15 minutes of ice time in the playoffs compared to roughly 12 minutes per game during the regular season, a much larger role for Kantserov in the playoffs. And he also only had 15 points in 53 regular season games compared to the 13 points that he had in the 23 postseason contests. And oh yeah, he's still only 19 years old, continuing to just flash his high offensive upside and playing in what's considered to be the second best professional league in all of men's hockey. I mean, it's pretty gosh darn impressive what Roman Kantserov has been able to do here the last couple of weeks. And as I alluded to when I mentioned that Metallurg was in the Gagarin Cup final, probably sometime last week, this has just been rather an ideal season out of Roman Kantserov. The Blackhawks weren't really sure if he was going to be a full-time KHL player, if he was going to have to go back to the MHL, what exactly it was going to look like. Remained in the KHL for the majority of the season. You know, maybe the production wasn't ideal, but he's also only a 19-year-old kid, and then really burst through and kind of has his little coming out party in the KHL postseason. Really spectacular stuff out of Roman Kantserov, a high octane, high speed, good playmaking type of player. Still has 2 years left in his current contract over in Russia, so it's not like we're going to be seeing him anytime soon. But even if he does come over when that contract ends following the 2025-2026 season, he'll still only be 21 going on 22 if he does, in fact, come over to North America at that point in time. So still going to be very young, and you know he's going to be getting a boatload of good experiences over these next couple years. I'm sure Metallurg has to be very excited based on what they saw him do here to help them win the Gagarin Cup. You got to imagine if all goes well, he's only going to get more and more ice time in a larger and larger role for this club, and he's still a young man doing it. So hard to not be excited about Roman Kantserov and a slew of Blackhawks youngsters, Alex Vlasic, Ethan Del Mastro down in Rockford right now, along with a lot of those other guys, Nolan Allen, Wyatt Kaiser, Paul Ludwinski's there. My, oh my, this is what makes the summertime fun, is talking about all of these prospects and hopefully future puzzle pieces for the Chicago Blackhawks. Roman Kantserov, I think he gets an A for his first full season in the KHL, taking down the Gagarin Cup, coming home with some hardware here this season. Hopefully we'll be able to keep that up and have a big next couple of years prior to coming over to North America and joining the Blackhawks organization. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts, and to go and subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. And that way you can get all of the latest episodes as soon as they're uploaded each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and give me a follow on X at Jack Bushman2. And make sure to also go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account as well at Talkin' Hockey. So that way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until next time, everyone, have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your weekends. And I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.